Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. Today, we're going to talk about one common parenting fear that you never realized was about your trauma. If you like this content, please click the subscribe button below. You can also find much more post-traumatic parenting content on Instagram at Dr. Koslowitz Psychology. That is where the post-traumatic parenting community hangs out. You can also find us on Facebook. To learn more about any topic that we talk about, check out the Post Traumatic Parenting podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. So many parents have this fear and they're not aware that this fear is rooted in childhood trauma. The fear is, I will mess up my kids. I don't know how to parent. I'm going to mess up. I need to be perfect. This is entirely about your childhood trauma, and it is not about the fear. It's not about the content of the fear. It's not about the knowledge that you think you do or don't have. It's all about your trauma, because the trauma app in the back of our brain that warns us of danger warns us that parenting is really important to us. Parenting is what we want to do really, really, really well. We care about parenting. And we look back at our own childhood. We look back at our childhood traumas, and we look back at how alone we felt, how we had these experiences that were too big for our brain to metabolize, and no one was there to hold us. No one was there to help us through it. And we resolved to do that differently. We're going to do that different for our kids. So we become perfectionists. We try to do all the things right all of the time, because perfectionism is a trauma response. We are so afraid of messing up that we become paralyzed, and we try to do everything perfectly. We substitute other people's parenting judgment for ours. We read a lot. We take courses. We follow social media streams. We do whatever we can, but we're terrified that we might mess up. What we don't realize is our children don't need perfect parents. They need present parents. They want us, not some automatically perfect robot who has every parenting script downloaded. They want us in all our imperfect glory. But that fear that I will mess up my child, that I'm going to do it wrong, that my damage will damage them, that I don't know how to parent, I don't have the instinct for parenting, there's some app that was downloaded in the minds of other moms that I don't have, that is a trauma response. That perfectionism that we're feeling, that stems from trauma. And what we need to do is talk back to the trauma app a little bit and say, trauma app, thank you for warning me that parenting is important and I don't want to mess it up. You're right. And I know that I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have. I know that I keep acquiring tools and I get a little bit better each day. I also know something crucial. It's never the rupture, it's always the repair. Turns out relationships can be fixed. Who knew? Right? Because in our childhood, it didn't feel that way. We can repair. We can say to a kid, yesterday when you were fighting with your brother, I was really only hearing your brother's side of the story and I didn't really pay enough attention to yours. I actually want to hear your side today. Today when you came home and I was on a work call, it looked like you had something really important to tell me, and you looked kind of upset, crestfallen a little bit when I couldn't give you attention right away. I'm sorry. I wish I could have given you attention right away, but now I'm here and now I want to hear it. Right. And if we're authentic with that desire to repair, if we hear the child out, even through the uncomfortable feedback, yeah, mommy, it really hurt my feelings. I wanted to show you my report card and you were on a work call and I felt like I wasn't even important to you. And instead of becoming defensive and instead of dissociating, perhaps as we would have in the past, we stay present, ouch, and we say, yeah, that must have hurt. You really wanted to show me your report card. You really wanted to tell me about your last day of school. And I was busy on a work call. That must have felt bad. That must have made you feel lonely. I'm sorry. I wish I could have been available to you. I'm available now. I want to hear it now. Let's see if we can make it up now. Let me see your report card now. Let's have this conversation. And yeah, we have to be willing to tolerate the discomfort that feedback from our child is going to give us, that momentary sense of like, oh my gosh, I am the worst mother in the world. How could I not have been available? Right. And I mean, the realities of being a working parent, sometimes that's just life. And we're going to tolerate that. We're going to listen to that feedback. We're going to validate, and then we're going to repair. And our child knows that we're there to do the work of repair. So the child understands that when there's a rupture in the relationship, it's not an emergency. They don't have to tiptoe around on eggshells, making sure there's never a rupture in the relationship with us because they know that we're available to repair. And that means that they can repair too, right? So if they lash out, if they have a meltdown, if they get really upset, if they say those hurtful words, you're the worst mom in the world, I hate you, they know that we'll be available to repair and they can come to us and say, yeah, I got a little heated before. I'm sorry. I didn't mean you're the worst mom in the world. I just was really angry and frustrated. And they know we'll be available to hear it and to engage in the repair process with them. So they know that repair is possible, which is the opposite of a traumatized childhood where you're walking on eggshells trying to manage everybody's emotions around you, right? That's a sense that we're allowed to be human. We don't have to walk on eggshells because the relationship's not all that fragile, right? When something's very fragile, if it's made of china, we're going to treat it very delicately and we're going to wrap it up in silk scarves and we're not going to, we're going to barely touch it. That's not the kind of relationship we want with our children, right? We want a utilitarian, fun relationship. We want the relationship to be more like a cozy sweater or a rubber ball where you want to play with it and use it and hug it and cuddle it and be around it all the time, right? So let's understand that your fear of messing up with your child, your fear of being an imperfect parent, that fear is a trauma response because trauma tells us being shamed and blamed and criticized like we were in our childhood, that means we have to be perfect so no one will ever shame and blame and criticize us again. So we learn perfectionism. Very often, those of us who had trauma in our childhoods and who get praised for being resilient, and we get told that we're so productive and resilient and we're, good students and things like that, people are missing the fact that we're perfectionists, and we're perfectionists because we're afraid to make a mistake, because we think that relationships around us are so fragile that if we make a mistake we will break the relationship. When we're adults and then when we're post-traumatic parents, we know that it's not about not messing up the relationship. It's about repairing and being willing to do the work of repair and even being willing to hear that uncomfortable feedback from a child when we're engaging in that repair process. That's what makes the relationship strong. Think about a knot, a rope that's knotted, right? A rope is strong, but a knotted rope is even stronger at the knotted place, right? A relationship is like that too. If we know how to have that inevitable rupture and we relax enough to allow ourselves to sometimes have that rupture with our child, then when we engage in that repair process, the relationship becomes stronger. And we've also taught the child humans are imperfect. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay if you mess up and you sometimes engage in a rupture because you can engage in repair. It's possible to fix it, something that we were never taught in our childhood. So know this, your fear of not being a perfect parent, your parental perfectionism, your burnout, those stem directly from your trauma. It's a trauma response, but perfection is the opposite of presence. We can't be present and be perfect at the same time, because if we're spending so much time thinking about perfect, 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 we're not being present, 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 present. It's okay to be yourself in parenting. You are who your child's brain is neurologically, interpersonally, biologically wired to want to have a relationship with. Your child wants you, not some perfect version of you. So if you have this fear that I'm an imperfect parent, I can't do it, I'm not able to parent, know that it's a trauma response. So know that it's normal. And also know that it's never the rupture, it's always the repair. In order to repair, what we want to do is we want to validate, we want to hear the feedback, we want to acknowledge what the child is feeling and saying, and we want to plan for the future so that that rupture doesn't happen in the future. And sometimes we have to plan in fantasy, because sometimes the child can say something like, I wish you wouldn't ever take a Zoom call from your work again. That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be amazing if we lived in a world where I didn't have to work anymore? That's not going to happen because bills. That's not going to happen. I wouldn't say that to the child, but that's not going to happen because I do need to keep my job and work. But what I can do is the minute I hang up from my call, give you attention. I can try not to schedule a call at 4 o'clock because I know you're going to come home 4:15 and the call might go over time. I'm going to try to be mindful of that, right? So sometimes we do have to give in fantasy what we can't give in reality, but sometimes it's a matter of, okay, that sounds super important to you. So I'm going to change that in the future because it's important that your needs be met, right? So the idea is that the child feels heard, right? They feel validated, they feel acknowledged, they feel seen, they feel heard, and then they feel problem solved with so that the problem doesn't keep on. And maybe we want to ask for some checks and balances. How can we make sure? When will we check in with each other to see if our new plan is working? When can we have another like little meeting like we just had now to make sure that I'm honoring that and that we've fixed this problem so that it doesn't continue. If you like this video, please click the subscribe button below so you'll get notified of all new episodes. Please check out the post-traumatic parenting community on Facebook and on Instagram. You can find us at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology. The post-traumatic parenting podcast, which goes in depth into many of these topics, is available wherever you get your podcasts.